The morning light in my Vermont kitchen had a particular quality that Tuesday soft, almost apologetic, as if it knew what was coming. The air still carried whispers of my daughter's wedding, white peonies wilting in crystal vases, half-empty champagne bottles on the counter, and the lingering sweetness of almond cake that no amount of open windows could chase away. I'm Fiona Lawson, 63 years old. Widow for 5 years, marine biologist for 30. And apparently, in the eyes of my new son-in-law, an easy mark. My daughter Isabel sat across from me at the oak table that had belonged to my grandmother, a table that had witnessed 4 generations of family dinners, homework struggles, birthday celebrations, and my husband Thomas's last meal before the cancer took him. She still wore that post-wedding glow, that ethereal shine that new brides carry like armor against the world's cynicism. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, the same honey blonde it had been since childhood, though now professionally highlighted. Beside her sat Landon Ashcroft. No, Ashcraft. He'd corrected me 3 times during the rehearsal dinner, emphasizing that pretentious extra syllable like it mattered. 6'2", Harvard Business School, the kind of calculated handsomeness that looked focus-grouped. His linen blazer was perfectly pressed despite the humidity, his Patek Philippe watch catching the light every time he moved his manicured hands. He'd been moving them a lot lately, I noticed. Gesturing, performing. "Fiona," he said, and I noticed he never called me Mom. Never Mrs. Lawson, just Fiona, like we were colleagues, not family. Isabel and I have been discussing our future. My daughter's hand found his automatically, their fingers interlacing with practiced ease. They'd been together for 8 months, engaged for 3, married for 48 hours. "We want to be smart about things," he continued, his voice carrying that particular tone I recognized from pharmaceutical sales reps, smooth, confident, assuming agreement. "Estate planning, trust structures, tax optimization. The earlier you start, the better positioned you are." I sipped my coffee, dark roast, no sugar, a widow's drink, and waited. In my years studying marine ecosystems, I'd learned that the most dangerous predators often announce themselves with elaborate displays. That's when he produced the envelope. Manila, thick, my name typed on the front in cold Helvetica font. Not Mom or Mrs. Lawson, but my full legal name, Fiona Elizabeth Lawson. He slid it across the table with the kind of casual precision that suggested he'd practiced this moment. "Just some documents for you to review," he said, that smile never wavering. "Standard family trust arrangements. Nothing urgent, but it will be helpful to have everything aligned before we leave for Corsica tomorrow." Isabel leaned forward, her expression eager, wanting my approval like she had when she was 7 and showing me her first science fair project. "London's incredible with financial planning, Mom. He managed portfolios worth millions at his firm. He's already increased my 401k returns by 30%. I didn't touch the envelope. Not yet." "That's very thoughtful," I said, my voice neutral as distilled water. "I'll need time to review everything carefully." Something flickered in Landon's eyes, annoyance maybe or calculation. "Of course, though it's fairly straightforward. Just establishing a family trust structure that protects everyone's interests." Everyone's. Interesting word choice. "We should get going," he said, standing with the fluid grace of someone who never had to question their place in the world. "Early flight tomorrow. Honeymoon won't wait." He helped Isabel with her chair, a gesture that would have seemed gallant if I hadn't noticed how his hand pressed against her lower back, guiding, controlling. They gathered their things, Isabel's new Louis Vuitton purse, a wedding gift from his family, his Italian leather messenger bag, their matching wedding bands catching the light. "I love you, Mom," Isabel said, hugging me tight. She smelled like the Jo Malone perfume he'd bought her, replacing the vanilla body spray she'd worn since high school. "Love you too, sweetheart." Landon offered his hand. His grip was firm, held a second too long. "We'll talk when we get back," he said. Not a question. I stood at the window, watching their rented Porsche disappear down my gravel drive, dust settling in its wake like sediment in disturbed water. Only then did I pick up the envelope. The papers were worse than I expected. I sat in my study, Thomas's study really, still smelling faintly of his pipe tobacco, and the leather-bound journals he'd filled with observations about everything from bird migrations to stock patterns. The desk lamp cast a yellow pool of light over pages of legal documentation that made my stomach turn. It wasn't a family trust. It was a financial colonization. Every clause was designed to create a one-way flow of assets. The Ashcraft Family Trust would have full discretion over all contributed funds. The trustee Landon naturally would have sole authority over distributions, investments, and amendments. Contributors that would be me would have no voting rights, no oversight capacity, no ability to withdraw funds once transferred. But the real poison was in Section 7, subsection 3. Upon establishment, the trust becomes the primary beneficiary of all contributor estate plans, superseding previous arrangements. He wanted everything. Not just what I might contribute now, but everything I would ever have, everything I might leave behind. And Isabel had already signed. Her signature was on page 12, witnessed and notarized. Yesterday, the day after her wedding, while still dizzy with champagne and love, I set the papers down and walked to the kitchen, my hands surprisingly steady. I made another pot of coffee, stronger this time, and stood at the sink watching the lake through the window. Morning mist rose off the water like secrets surfacing. That's when I remembered Thomas's words, spoken 5 years ago from a hospital bed that seemed too small for his tall frame. The water holds more than we can see. Fee always has. He wasn't talking about the lake. The cigar box was exactly where Thomas had left it, hidden behind volumes of tide tables and coastal mappings in the study. Cuban cigars he'd never smoked, a cover story for something else entirely. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, a brass key and a business card for a bank in Zurich, with only a number written on the back. 314. I made the trip 3 months after his funeral, when the grief had dulled enough to allow for curiosity. The safety deposit box had contained documents that changed everything I thought I knew about our comfortable, middle-class life. Thomas, my careful, methodical Thomas, who clipped coupons and drove a 10-year-old Subaru, had been playing a much longer game. In 1999, he'd invested $50,000, his entire inheritance from an uncle, into a biotech startup in Geneva called Helix Dynamics. The company developed enzyme therapies for rare genetic disorders. When Pfizer acquired them in 2018, Thomas's stake was worth $48 million. But he never brought it home. Instead, he created a Byzantine structure of holding companies and trusts, all leading back to something called Harborstone Dynamics Egg, anonymous, encrypted, invisible. The only access was through a biometric scan and a signature code that he taught me to memorize like a prayer. The tide always returns what the sea takes away. In 5 years, I never touched it. Never needed to. My pension was sufficient, the house was paid for, and I learned to live with the elegant simplicity of widowhood. The money sat there, gathering interest, a secret ocean beneath the visible surface of my life. Now, watching Landon's taillights disappear, I understood why Thomas had hidden it so carefully. It wasn't paranoia. It was prophecy. The knock came at 7:43 the next morning. I was still in my robe, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the lake gold. 3 sharp raps, aggressive, impatient. Cole Weaver stood on my porch like an exclamation point in a gray suit. Everything about him was sharp. His jawline, his hair part, the crease in his trousers, the smile that never reached his eyes. "Mrs. Lawson," he said, already stepping forward before I'd invited him in. "I apologize for the early hour. I'm Cole Weaver, legal representative for Mr. and Mrs. Ashcraft. There's been some urgency regarding the trust. Documentation. My daughter's name is Lawson," I said, not moving from the doorway. "She kept it. A micro-expression crossed his face: surprise, irritation, calculation, all in the space of a heartbeat. Of course, my apologies. May I come in? This really is quite time-sensitive. Every instinct screamed no, but I needed to understand the scope of their plan. I stepped aside. He made himself comfortable at my dining room table without asking, setting his briefcase on the surface where Isabel had once done her homework, where Thomas had helped her build a model of the water cycle for fourth grade science, where we celebrated her acceptance to Dartmouth with champagne and tears. I'll be direct, Weaver said, pulling out a document that looked even thicker than the one Landon had left. Mr. Ashcraft is concerned there may have been some misunderstanding about the trust structure. He wanted to ensure you had full clarity. How thoughtful, I said, my voice dry as sand. He flipped to a tabbed section. This particular clause might be of interest. It's regarding asset disclosure requirements for all parties involved in the trust. I leaned forward just enough to read. All parties must provide complete financial disclosure within 72 hours of trust establishment to ensure proper structuring and tax optimization. My daughter signed this? Yesterday afternoon, yes. Before they left for their honeymoon. He pulled out another document. This is a standard disclosure form. If you could simply list your assets, bank accounts, investment portfolios, real estate holdings, that sort of thing, we can ensure everything is properly protected. Protected. There was that word again, meaning its opposite. Mr. Weaver, I said, standing slowly. I don't sign anything without my own legal counsel reviewing it first. His smile tightened. Certainly, your daughter explained. My daughter is on her honeymoon. In Corsica, I believe? She's not available to explain anything, Mr. Ashcraft specifically requested. Mr. Ashcraft can request whatever he likes. This meeting is over. He packed up slowly, each movement deliberate, trying to regain control of the interaction. Mrs. Lawson, I should mention that time is a factor here. The trust structure has tax implications that... Goodbye, Mr. Weaver. After his car disappeared, I stood in my kitchen, adrenaline making my hands shake. Then I picked up my phone and called the one person who would understand. Victor Green answered on the second ring, despite it being barely 8 a.m. Fiona, he said, and in that single word I heard 25 years of friendship, trust, and shared secrets. What's wrong? Victor had been Thomas's roommate at MIT, best man at our wedding, godfather to Isabel. He was also the only other person who knew about the Zurich accounts. He'd helped Thomas structure them, using his expertise in international finance law to create something bulletproof. Isabel got married 2 days ago, I said. I know. I'm sorry I couldn't make it. The Singapore deal ran long. Her new husband is trying to steal everything. Silence. Then, I'm listening. I explained everything. The envelope, the trust documents, Weaver's visit, the disclosure requirements. Victor listened without interrupting, though I could hear him typing, probably already researching Landon Ashcraft. He's patient, Victor said finally. This isn't impulse. He's been planning this. How long? More typing. Landon Ashley Ashcraft. Changed his name legally 3 years ago from Landon Ashley Craft. Before that, interesting. 2 previous engagements, both broken off suddenly. Both women from wealthy families. My coffee had gone cold. He's done this before. Attempted, at least. But Fiona, he doesn't know about Zurich, does he? No one does. Just you and me. Then we have an advantage. He's hunting for something he can't see. We can use that. How? We give him something to find. Something believable. Something that makes him overconfident. I understood immediately. A false trail. Exactly. But Fiona, this is going to require you to lie to Isabel. I looked at her photo on the mantel college graduation, beaming, ready to take on the world. I've been lying to her for 5 years about the money. This is different. This is active deception. No, I said, my voice hardening. This is protection. Victor and I worked through the night. connected by encrypted video call. He was in his Singapore office, 14 hours ahead, the city lights glittering behind him like a constellation of ambition. I was in my study, surrounded by Thomas's journals and empty coffee cups. We crafted a fictional financial life for me, complete with documentation that would pass casual scrutiny. The story we told was perfectly believable. A widow living on a modest pension, some savings from her late husband's life insurance, a small inheritance from an aunt, and a house worth less than it appeared due to structural issues and market conditions. The total assets, $280,000, most of it tied up in an annuity that wouldn't mature for 3 years. We need to make it frustrating for him, Victor said. Money he can see but can't easily access. That'll make him desperate. We created bank statements, investment summaries, even a fabricated email chain with a financial advisor discussing my limited options for increasing my retirement income. Everything was backdated, formatted correctly, printed on the right paper. But the masterpiece was a single account reel, but dormant that I opened years ago for a research grant that never materialized. It had $1,100 in it, forgotten money, but the account number would trace back to me if someone looked hard enough. We leave this visible, Victor said. Just barely. Like you tried to hide it but weren't tech-savvy enough. I created a folder labeled Financial Documents, Private, and left it on my desk, partially covered by last week's newspaper. Inside, along with our fictional documents, I included a sticky note with login credentials for the dormant account. The password was Thomas 2019, believable, touching, and completely useless for anything that mattered. Now we wait, Victor said. How will we know if he takes the bait? I've set up monitoring on that account. Any access attempt will trigger an alert. We'll know the second he tries. 3 days passed. I spent them normally gardening, reading, walking by the lake. I even sent Isabel cheerful texts about her honeymoon, asking about the food, the beaches, the weather. Her responses were full of joy and exclamation points, and photos of Landon looking proprietorial against Mediterranean backdrops. On the 4th morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Victor. Fish on the line. The call from my bank came at 4 p.m., just as the afternoon sun was slanting through the kitchen windows. Mrs. Lawson, this is Sarah Chun from Vermont Financial Security. We've detected suspicious activity on one of your accounts. My performance was important here. Oh my goodness, what kind of activity? Someone attempted to initiate a transfer of the full balance from your account ending in 7093. The attempt was made from an IP address in Corsica, using credentials that appeared to have been compromised. Corsica? But that's where my daughter is honeymooning. The device signature indicates an iPad registered to an Isabel Lawson. I let silence convey shock. Then, there must be some mistake. Mrs. Lawson, the attempt was made at 2:14 a.m. local time. The user tried multiple times to bypass the security questions. We've frozen the account pending investigation. Yes, of course. Thank you for catching this. After hanging up, I sat in the gathering dusk, not bothering to turn on the lights. He'd used her device while she slept, entered her passwords, attempted to steal from her mother using her own fingerprint to unlock the iPad. This wasn't just greed anymore. This was betrayal so profound it took my breath away. My phone rang. Isabel. Mom. Her voice was bright, unsuspecting. How are you? We just had the most amazing dinner. Sweetheart, I interrupted gently. I need to ask you something. Has anyone been using your iPad? My iPad, just me, why? You haven't let Landon use it? A pause. Well, he borrowed it last night to check some work emails. His phone wasn't getting service. Mom, what's going on? Nothing serious. Just some spam emails from your account. Maybe change your password when you get a chance. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll do that. We talked for a few more minutes about safe things, the weather, the food, their plans for tomorrow. But I heard it in her voice, a tiny seed of doubt planted by my questions. Good. They returned from Corsica 6 days later, tanned and seemingly happy. I invited them to lunch at Miller Jardin, a quiet cafe in Montpellier with a garden courtyard and enough ambient noise to mask difficult conversations. I arrived early, choosing a table in the corner where I could see everyone who entered. The fountain bubbled peacefully, lying about the nature of the conversation to come. They walked in hand, but I noticed the slight distance between their bodies. The way Isabel's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The honeymoon glow was fading, replaced by something more tentative. "Mom," she hugged me tight, and I smelled airplane staleness beneath her perfume. Landon kissed my cheek, his lips dry, perfunctory. "Fiona, you look well." We ordered salads for Isabel and me, steak frite for Landon. He also ordered a martini, though it was barely noon. Confidence or nerves? Both, probably. The small talk lasted through the appetizers. Then, as our mains arrived, Landon reached into his leather satchel. "I brought the trust documents," he said, casual as discussing the weather. "In case you had any questions after reviewing them." "Actually," I said, reaching into my own bag, "I brought something too." I placed my fictional financial disclosure on the table. "I thought you should see exactly what you're working with." He opened it immediately, his eyes scanning faster than politeness should have allowed. I watched his face change, surprise, calculation, disappointment, all flickering past like slides in a presentation. "This is comprehensive," he managed. "It's everything," I said simply. $280,000, most of it locked in an annuity. The house has a mortgage I had to take out for Thomas's treatments. There's really not much to protect, I'm afraid. Isabel looked between us, confused. "Mom, I thought. You always seemed comfortable?" I offered a sad smile. "Your father was very good at making things appear better than they were." It was a gift, really. Landon closed the folder, his jaw tight. "Well, this changes the trust structure somewhat, does it?" I asked innocently. He stood abruptly. "Excuse me. I need to use the restroom." As soon as he was gone, Isabel leaned forward. "Mom, is this why you're asking about my iPad?" I met her eyes. "Sweetheart, has Landon been asking about our family finances?" He's just trying to plan for our future. By accessing your iPad at 2 a.m. while you're sleeping." Her face went white. "What?" I pulled out my phone, showed her the email from the bank, the timestamp, the IP address, the device ID. She stared at it, her world tilting. "There's an explanation." "There has to be. Ask him." Landon returned, his composure restored but his smile dimmer. The rest of lunch was strained, conversation stilted. Isabel barely touched her food, pushing leaves around her plate like she was searching for answers in the arugula. That night, alone in my study, I went through the wedding footage Isabel's friend Meredith had shared via cloud storage. 5 hours of shaky phone videos, unflattering angles, and candid moments no professional photographer would have captured. I was looking for something specific the moment I noticed but hadn't fully processed during the reception. Landon with his groomsmen, late in the evening, when alcohol had dissolved careful facades. I found it at timestamp 3 hours 47 minutes and 22 seconds. They were by the bar, ties loosened, guards down. The conversation was barely audible over the music, but Meredith's phone had been close enough to catch fragments. "Told you he'd land one eventually. How much we talking?" "Old lady's loaded, trust me." Then, clear as daybreak, Landon's voice, "Not yet. Give me a month. I'll have it all transferred." Done this dance before, boys. Laughter, clinking glasses. Then someone asking, "What about the daughter?" Landon's response chilled me. "She's sweet, trusting, thinks I hung the moon. She signed anything I put in front of her." More laughter. I copied the video, saved it to 3 different drives, and uploaded it to Victor's secure server. Then I sat back and considered my options. I could send it to Isabel immediately, destroy her marriage before it had truly begun. But she'd already signed documents. She was already legally entangled. I needed more than proof of his intentions, I needed leverage. 2 days later, Victor called with urgency in his voice. He's not just after your fictional money, Fiona. He's been digging deeper. What do you mean? I've been monitoring search patterns associated with his IP address. He's been researching you, Thomas, your work history. He found an old article about a grant you received in 2010. My blood chilled. That grant had been the cover story for one of the Zurich transfers. He's following a thread, Victor continued. He doesn't know where it leads, but he's pulling at it. How much time do we have before he finds something real? Maybe a week. Maybe less if he hires a forensic accountant. Then we need to move faster. That afternoon, I did something I sworn I wouldn't. I called Cole Weaver. Mrs. Lawson, he sounded surprised. How can I help you? I've reconsidered the trust documents. I'd like to discuss them, but only with you, not Landon. This is about my daughter's future, and I'd prefer to keep emotions out of it. I could hear his smile through the phone. Very wise. When would you like to meet? Tomorrow, my house. 10 a.m. I'll be there. After hanging up, I called Victor. I need you to be here. Hidden, but here. What are you planning? I'm going to let him think he's winning. Then I'm going to record every word. Weaver arrived precisely at 10, his silver Mercedes gleaming in my driveway like a threat. I set up the living room carefully, coffee service on the antique table, documents spread out but not too neatly, the picture of a widow trying to understand complex financial matters. Victor was in the study, door cracked, recording everything through a device that looked like a phone charger. Thank you for coming, I said, playing the part of the overwhelmed elderly woman. Weaver settled into Thomas's old armchair like he owned it. I'm glad you've come around. This really is best for everyone. I just want to understand, I said, letting my voice waver slightly. These terms seem so comprehensive. He leaned forward, patronizing kindness oozing from every pore. It's designed to protect the family assets. Your daughter's financial future. Any grandchildren. But it seems like Landon controls everything. He has the expertise. Would you rather trust your daughter's future to someone without his background? I pretended to consider this. I suppose not. But what happens if something goes wrong? If they divorce? Weaver's smile was sharp. The trust is irrevocable once established. The assets remain protected regardless of marital status. Protected from whom? From anyone who might try to take advantage. The irony was so thick I could have carved it with a knife. And if I refused to sign? His expression hardened slightly. That would be unfortunate. Landon is very protective of his wife's interests. He might feel that family members who don't support the marriage shouldn't have access to the couple. There it was. The threat, delivered soft as silk. You mean he'd keep me from my daughter? I'm saying family harmony requires cooperation. I let tears fill my eyes, not difficult, given my rage. I just want what's best for Isabel. Then sign the documents. Make this easy. Your daughter has already committed. Don't make her choose between her husband and her mother. I reached for the papers with shaking hands. Could I have a few more days? To get my affairs in order? He gathered the documents, satisfied. 48 hours. Then we need signatures. After he left, Victor emerged from the study. Did you get it? He held up the device. Every word. Every threat. Every admission. Good, now we end this. I called Isabel that evening. Can you come over tomorrow? Alone? I have something to show you. Mom, what's going on? Landon said you met with his lawyer. Please, sweetheart. Just trust me this once. She arrived the next morning, looking tired and stressed. The honeymoon tan had faded, replaced by something fragile. Landon's angry, she said without preamble. He says you're being difficult about the trust. Sit down, I said gently. There's something you need to see. I played the wedding video first. watched her face crumble as she heard her husband discussing her like a business acquisition. Then the bank records showing the attempted theft. Then Weaver's recorded threats. By the end, she was sobbing ugly, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. I held her while she cried, rocking her like I had when she was small and the world had wounded her. Why? She kept asking. Why would he do this? Because he could, I said simply. Because he thought we were weak. She pulled back and I saw something change in her eyes. The naive trust was gone, replaced by something harder, sharper. What do? We give him a choice. He signs annulment papers and walks away, or we destroy him. Can we do that? I smiled, and for the first time I saw my daughter truly see me not as her mother, but as someone who had survived far more than she'd ever known. Oh, sweetheart. We can do so much more than that. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. at Brennan, Loughlin and Associates, a law firm in Burlington with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Champlain. I'd chosen them specifically. They'd handled Thomas's estate and knew how to be discreet. Victor flew in from Singapore, arriving that morning in a Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's cars. If we're going to war, he said, we dress for it. Isabel wore black a designer dress Landon had bought her, which seemed appropriate. Let him see what he was losing. I wore the navy suit I'd worn to Thomas's funeral. It felt like armor. Landon arrived 15 minutes late with Cole Weaver and another lawyer I didn't recognize. He looked confident, maybe even amused, until he saw Victor. Who's this? He asked. Victor Green, Victor said, not offering his hand. I represent the Lawson family interests. I wasn't aware the Lawsons had interests requiring representation, Weaver said. Sit down, I said, my voice carrying the authority of every board meeting I'd ever run, every grant I'd ever defended, every time I'd had to be stronger than I felt. The conference room was modern, all glass and chrome, but the view was ancient, the lake that had been here long before any of us and would remain long after. Victor opened his briefcase with theatrical precision, laying out documents like playing cards in a game where we held all the aces. Let's start with the attempted wire fraud, he said conversationally. 2:14 a.m. Corsica time. Device ID matching an iPad registered to Isabel Lawson. IP address tracing to your honeymoon suite. Landon's face didn't change, but his lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Then we have the conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse, Victor continued, sliding Weaver's recorded threats across the table. Threatening to isolate an elderly woman from her daughter unless she signs over her assets? That's a felony in Vermont. You recorded me without consent, Weaver protested. Vermont is a one-party consent state, Victor replied smoothly. Mrs. Lawson was well within her rights. I pulled out the wedding video transcript. And then there's this. Your client on camera admitting to a pattern of targeting women for financial gain. Done this dance before, I believe were his exact words. The unnamed lawyer whispered urgently in Landon's ear. His face was red now, the control facade cracking. What do you want? He asked through gritted teeth. Isabel spoke for the first time, her voice steady and cold. An annulment, immediate, uncontested. On what grounds? Fraud, she said simply. You married me under false pretenses. You never loved me. You loved what you thought I had. You can't prove that in court, Victor smiled. We don't need to prove it in court. We just need to prove it to the State Bar Association when we file complaints against Mr. Weaver, and to your employer when we send them evidence of your extracurricular activities. And to Melissa Chun and Patricia Worthington. Landon went white. How do you know those names? Your previous fiancés? Victor pulled out more papers. They were very interested to hear they weren't the only ones. They're considering filing their own charges. Apparently, you left them with significant debts they're still paying off. The room was silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant cry of gulls over the lake. If I sign? Landon asked. You walk away, I said. no charges filed. No public exposure. You simply disappear from our lives. And if I don't? Then Mr. Green and I will spend whatever it takes to destroy you so thoroughly that you'll need to change your name again just to get a job at McDonald's. Weaver leaned over, whispering urgently. The unnamed lawyer was already packing his briefcase, wanting no part of this. Finally, Landon looked at Isabel. For a moment, his mask slipped entirely and I saw what he really was, small, desperate, furious at being outmaneuvered. You'll regret this, he said. No, she replied, steel in her voice. I'll regret the wedding. I'll regret trusting you. But this is the first thing I've done right since I met you. Victor slid the annulment papers across the table. Sign now. Landon signed with sharp, angry strokes. Weaver witnessed it, his own signature shaky. They left without another word, Landon not even looking back at the woman he claimed to love. We drove back to my house in silence, the three of us processing what had just happened. The late afternoon sun turned the lake to gold, and I thought about Thomas, about secrets, about the price of protecting the people we love. Back in my kitchen, I opened a bottle of wine, a good one, from the cellar, that Thomas had been saving for a special occasion. We did it, Isabel said, but she didn't sound triumphant. She sounded exhausted. You did it, I corrected. You stood up to him. I couldn't have without you, without both of you. She looked at Victor. Thank you for flying in. For everything. Victor raised his glass. Your father would have done the same. He was the best friend I ever had. We drank in companionable silence for a while. Then Isabel asked the question I'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure. Mom, how did you afford Victor? Top international lawyers don't work for free. And you said you only had $280,000. Victor and I exchanged glances. Tell her, he said gently. She's earned the truth. I set down my wine glass and looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She wasn't a child anymore. The last weeks had carved away whatever innocence remained, leaving someone stronger, if scarred. Your father left us more than I told you, I began. How much more? $48 million. The wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. We all stared at the spreading puddle, the fragments of crystal catching light like stars. 40-8. Mom, what? So I told her everything. Thomas's secret investment, the shell companies, the Zurich accounts, why we hidden it, why I continued to hide it even after he died. She listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, hurt, anger, and finally something like understanding. You lied to me for years, yes, to protect me. To protect you from becoming what Landon thought you were, an easy mark with easy money. To let you build your own life, make your own choices, become your own person without the weight of wealth you didn't earn. And now? Now you know. And you've proven you can handle it. You saw through someone trying to use you. You stood up to him. You chose integrity over comfort. She was crying again, but these tears were different, cleaner somehow. What do we do with $48 million? She asked. Whatever we want, I said. But first, we clean up this wine. 3 weeks passed. The annulment was finalized with surprising speed. Landon apparently wanted to disappear as much as we wanted him gone. Isabel moved back home temporarily, needing time to recalibrate her life. We fell into a routine. Morning coffee on the porch, long walks by the lake, dinners where we actually talked instead of performing the careful dance of mother and daughter. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset paint the sky purple and gold, she asked, "Do you think he ever felt anything real for me?" I considered lying, offering comfort. But we were past that now. I think he felt what he thought was love, the pleasure of possession, the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of winning. But real love? The kind that sacrifices, that protects, that chooses the other person's happiness over its own gain? No. How do you know? Because real love leaves evidence, I said, thinking of Thomas. It leaves behind more than debt and legal documents. It leaves strength in the people it touches. She leaned against my shoulder, and we watched the first stars appear. Mom, why didn't Dad tell you about the money sooner? I think he was afraid it would change us. Change how we saw ourselves, each other, our life. And he was probably right. Money has a way of distorting things, making them larger or smaller than they really are. But he told you eventually, when he knew he was dying, yes. When he had no choice but to trust me with it. Do you wish he told you sooner? I thought about it. No, we had 23 years of real-life struggles and victories that were ours, earned with our own hands. That's worth more than any fortune. A week later, Victor called with news. Landon's been arrested, he said without preamble. What? Melissa Chun, one of his previous fiancées, went to the FBI. Apparently he'd taken out credit cards in her name, ran up $200,000 in debt. She'd been too embarrassed to report it before, but our meeting gave her courage. Will she be okay? She will now. Patricia Worthington is testifying too. Turns out our boy Landon had quite the pattern going. After I hung up, I told Isabel. Good, she said simply. He won't do this to anyone else. But I saw her hands shake slightly as she poured her tea. The wedding was small this time, just family and close friends in my backyard, under the maple trees that had turned brilliant orange for the occasion. Isabel wore a simple cream dress, no veil, no pretense. Her smile was different too, quieter, more knowing, but genuine. David was nothing like Landon. A park ranger she'd met on one of our hikes, he drove a 10-year-old truck and wore flannel unironically. When she told him about the money, our money, he'd gone pale and asked if this meant she expected him to sign a prenup. Absolutely, she'd said, and his relief had been palpable. Thank God, he'd replied. I'd hate to think you were marrying me for my pension. They laughed until they cried, and I knew she'd found something real. Victor walked her down the aisle. He'd become like an uncle to her, the family we chose rather than the family we were given. I officiated, having gotten ordained online for the occasion. Do you, Isabel, take David, knowing that life is uncertain, that people are flawed, but that love, real love, is worth the risk? I do, she said, her voice strong and clear. Do you, David, promise to see Isabel for who she truly is, not what she has or what she might give you, but for her heart, her mind, her spirit? Every day, he said, and meant it. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in genuine joy. No one was performing. Everyone was just happy. Later, as we sat around the fire pit, marshmallows roasting, children running through the yard with sparklers, Victor raised his beer. To Thomas, he said. Who knew that the best inheritance isn't what you leave behind, but what you teach people to protect? We toasted, and I felt Thomas there, in the laughter, in the light, in the way Isabel looked at David with eyes wide open, heart protected, but not closed. The money still sat in Zurich, growing quietly. We started a foundation, anonymous, of course, that funded women recovering from financial abuse. It seemed fitting. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Isabel found me in the kitchen, washing dishes like it was any other day. Mom, she said, thank you. For what? For teaching me that the most dangerous predators often come with smiles and promises. For showing me that strength isn't about what you have, but what you're willing to do to protect it. For trusting me with the truth, even when it was hard. I dried my hands and hugged her tight. Thank you for being strong enough to hear it. Outside, David was helping Victor fold chairs, laughing at some story about Thomas from their MIT days. The lake reflected the moon, silver and secret and vast. You know what Dad would say right now? Isabel asked. What? The tide always returns what the sea takes away, I smiled. But sometimes it takes a while. And sometimes you have to help it along, with a really good lawyer, she added. And a mother who knows how to lay a trap. We laughed. And in that laughter was everything: grief and joy, loss and discovery, the end of one story and the beginning of another. The fortune Thomas left wasn't really $48 million hidden in Zurich accounts. It was this: the knowledge that love protects, that family endures, and that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the strength to save themselves. And that was priceless.